Your 20s are probably the most important decade you'll ever get, and most people don't figure that out until they're already through it. So today I want to do something a little different. Instead of telling you how to win your 20s, I'm going to give you the full guide on how to ruin them, 10 mistakes step by step, and if you make all 10, you'll be broke, unhealthy, and wondering where the decade went by the time you hit 30. And look, if you've already made a couple of these, that's not the end of the story, but it's a lot easier to just avoid them in the first place than to dig yourself back out later. So if you catch yourself doing any of these while I'm talking, that's your cue. Let's get into it. Mistake number 1 is getting a degree that doesn't lead to anything. Society sells you one path from the time you're a kid. Go to school, get a degree, any degree, and a good job just shows up on the other end. But that's not really how it works. A degree can absolutely help you. I'm not sitting here telling you to skip college. It depends entirely on what you study and whether there's any real plan behind it. The gap between the highest earning degrees and the lowest earning ones is genuinely massive, and almost nobody sits down and actually looks at that before picking one at 18. So don't confuse I got a degree with I got an education that actually pays. That mix-up is how people end up with real debt and nothing to show for it. Mistake number 2, and this one can genuinely follow you for the rest of your life if you don't catch it, not taking your finances seriously. Most people get their first real paycheck around 22 or 23, and the first thing they do is upgrade everything at once. Nicer car, nicer apartment, barely anything left at the end of the month. And the line is always the same. I'm young, I've got time, I'll figure out investing later. That's a genuinely expensive decision because time is the one advantage you actually have in your 20s that you can't buy back later at any price. I didn't get serious about this until my late 20s, if I'm being honest, and I still think about the years I lost not putting money to work sooner. Picture the guy who finances a car he didn't need with his first real paycheck and tells himself investing is a when I'm settled problem. He's not settled at 28 either. He's not settled at 32 because the goalpost just keeps moving at the same pace he does. So if you're in your early 20s watching this, that's genuinely the biggest advantage you have, not some clever pick, just starting before everyone around you does. Mistake number 3, and it's related, falling for consumerism. New car, new clothes, stuff you don't actually need. The subscriptions you forgot you're even paying for. If it doesn't make you money, save you time, or genuinely make you happier, don't buy it just because you can afford to now. There's a strange social rule where being broke at 22 is completely normal. Roommates, a beat-up car, ramen for dinner. Do the exact same thing at 37, and people start asking what happened. Meanwhile, the guy who kept his expenses flat while his income climbed is the same guy who quietly ends up with options nobody else in the friend group has. Not because he makes more, because he never let his lifestyle catch up to what he makes. So don't scale your spending just because your paycheck went up. Scale your savings instead. Mistake number 4, never take a real risk while you actually still can. Your 20s are a genuinely strange, narrow window. Old enough to work and build, but usually still young enough that a bad outcome doesn't wreck your entire life. I'm 34 now, married, 2 kids, and I can tell you directly, that window changes completely once you've got people depending on you. The risks I could take at 25 just aren't the risks I can take now. And that's not a complaint. That's just what being a dad actually means. I want to be clear, this isn't permission to be reckless. Every risk you take should still have a point to it, something you're actually trying to learn or build, not chaos for its own sake. Take the safe job at 22 if you need to. Just make sure you're learning something from it that lets you take the bigger swing later while that window's still open. Real quick, if any of this is hitting a little close to home, go ahead and subscribe. Seriously helps me out, and there's a lot more of this kind of thing coming. Back to the list. Mistake number 5, related to comfort, wasting too much time. You know the pattern. You get home, open your phone, and 2 hours just disappear into a feed you don't even remember scrolling. Meanwhile, the thing you actually wanted to build just sits there untouched again. being fine with a relaxed life is genuinely fine if that's really what makes you happy. But if you're unhappy and still choosing the scroll over the thing you actually want, that gap is the real problem, not your 20s themselves. If I'd kept choosing my phone over actually sitting down and building this channel, none of this exists right now. So the pattern is simple. Keep doing that for a decade and watch how far later keeps getting pushed back. Mistake number 6, and this one causes more damage than people expect: dating without any actual intention behind it. A lot of guys let the chase itself take over, chasing attention more than actually looking for someone who makes their life better. That costs you time, focus, and honestly, whatever your actual goals are, whatever those happen to be for you. The flip side is just as real. Avoid dating altogether, and you hit 30 with zero practice at the one skill that might matter most. Dating is a skill like anything else, and skills only get better with actual reps, not avoidance. I got lucky enough to find someone who genuinely makes my life easier, not harder, and that difference is enormous. A partner who builds with you and a partner who just drains you are not close to the same experience. The version of me that's married with 2 kids right now wouldn't be sitting here making this channel work without that difference. So date with actual intention, whichever side of this you're currently stuck on. Mistake number 7, never bothering to build your circle at all. You've probably heard you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's a cliche because it's just true. Friends who push you towards something make an enormous difference over years, quietly, in ways you don't notice until you look back. Friends who just complain and drink through every weekend do the exact same thing in the opposite direction. Some of the best opportunities in my life came from people I barely knew well at the time, just because I'd actually bothered to build the relationship first. It's rarely the obvious, huge connections either. It's usually someone you crossed paths with once, who happens to mention an opening a year later, because your name was still floating around in their head. So skip that entirely, stay isolated, and watch how much smaller your options get without you ever noticing the door closing. Mistake number 8, partying like there's never a bill coming due later. Early 20s, this genuinely costs you almost nothing. Stay out until 2, do something dumb, wake up, and it's basically like it never happened. That window closes faster than people expect. The hangovers get longer, the recovery gets more expensive, and the actual dollar cost of a big night out adds up into real money over a year without you ever tracking it. There's also a quieter cost nobody really talks about. Sunday used to be a day off, and now it's a recovery shift before Monday even starts. None of this means never have fun. It means noticing when partying quietly becomes the whole plan instead of the occasional release valve. Mistake number 9, getting hooked on whatever gives you the fastest, easiest escape. Drinking, gambling, doom scrolling, whatever your particular flavor happens to be. These things all promise the same thing: a quick escape, a temporary reset, and they all quietly rewire what your brain considers normal if you lean on them too often. The annoying part is none of them feel like a problem in month 1. They feel like a problem in month 14, when you notice you can't really sit still without reaching for one of them. Moderation is the actual line here, not cutting out everything that feels good. But if you notice a real reliance building, the honest fix is usually just removing the trigger, less unstructured phone time, more actual structure to your day. Because idle time really does just drift toward the easiest hit available. Mistake number 10, the last one, not taking your physical health seriously at all. In your early 20s, your body forgives almost everything: bad sleep, worse food, zero exercise, and you still wake up feeling basically fine. That forgiveness has an expiration date, and it comes earlier than people expect. I'm not going to pretend I'm out here training for a marathon, because I'm genuinely not. But there's a real difference between not being an athlete and just quietly letting the whole thing slide until your knees are filing complaints over a normal flight of stairs. Skip this one long enough, and you're not just tired, you're actually unhealthy. And undoing years of neglect takes a lot longer than building the habit would have in the first place. So that's the full list, 10 mistakes. And if you make every single one of them, you'll be broke, unhealthy, and genuinely wondering where your 20s went by the time you hit 30. The good news, and I mean this, making a couple of these isn't the end of anything. People turn it around all the time, later than they'd like, but they do it. It's just a lot cheaper to avoid these in the first place than to dig your way back out of them later. Drop a comment with which one hit closest to home. Honestly, I'm curious. You don't have to hit all 10 of these. You just have to actually notice when you're doing one.